Hello and happy holidays to you and your family and friends from all of us here at How to Be Awesome at Your Job. In the last couple of weeks of 2024 here, we decided to represent some of the greatest episodes of 2024 that you may have missed. And their greatness is based upon, I think it's great, my team think it's great, and the data from Apple Podcasts and Spotify, etc., says that they're great. And part of the motivation for this was I was in my podcast mastermind group meeting. I recommended a book, and one of my fellow podcasters said, "Yeah, this is a fantastic book. I've read it 30 times." I said, "What? You've read it 30 times?" Like, well, the two books, I read one of them 20 times, the other one 10 times. And I thought, wow, I have a tendency to rush to the next new thing because it's fun and interesting and it tickles my brain in a way because learning in itself is fun. But I think there's also really value in pausing to revisit the most transformational, excellent bits of reading, listening, learning wisdom that you've bumped into. I think this first episode that we're representing really fits the bill. Episode 925, How to Stop People Pleasing and Feeling Guilty with Dr. Aziz Gazipura. As you head into the holidays and you're reconnecting with family, there might be some old dynamics, relationships that are resurfacing with regard to people pleasing and your role and trying to appease others. And I think this is some great wisdom to bring back up right now. So I hope you enjoy Dr. Aziz.
Welcome to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast.
So I was just speaking with a woman just 2 days ago. She's about mid-40s, successful in her career, has a family, has a husband, and feels incredibly lonely and doesn't even really know what to change out there anymore because I have all the things. And she's lonely because no one, not even her husband, really knows her. People pleasing, it's a survival strategy that you picked up that's based upon an idea, a conclusion that's not even true. Being people pleasing is not the same thing as being kind or generous or loving or whatever it is that you actually value as a human. And that people pleasing is more of a compulsion and not a choice. When you feel real guilty, you can examine it and say, wait a minute, what rule did I break? And there's a shortcut. The question is, in this situation, what do I want?
That's Dr. Aziz Gazipura. He's a clinical psychologist and one of the world's leading experts on social confidence. Through his books and workshops, he's helped thousands of people overcome their people-pleasing tendencies to live healthier and more confident lives. So you'll learn 1, the massive cost of being a people pleaser. 2, how to not feel guilty when saying no. And 3, a surprising strategy to build your discomfort tolerance. I'm Pete Makaitis. This is How to Be Awesome at Your Job. And now, here's Dr. Aziz. Dr. Aziz, welcome.
Thank you, Pete. Glad to be here.
Could you kick us off with a dramatic tale about the dangers of people pleasing?
Yeah, well, I don't need to make anything up here. And it's the kind of, like all good dramatic stories, it's a slow build where maybe there's like, imagine a character in a movie where they go out and have some drinks and they really like it and it just seems like a good time. And then, flash forward many years later and they have the shakes in their hands because they have to have a drink of alcohol. And that's actually what niceness is like, or people pleasing specifically. So you basically make a choice to not be yourself in order to smooth things over or be liked or be accepted. And maybe a classic tale would be you did it when you were young. You did it to fit in at school. You did it to fit in with family. And that was not horribly off kilter then. But then I'll talk to, dozens of people every week where now they're 37 or they're 43 and they've done pretty good. Like inauthenticity and fitting in works. It's a somewhat adaptive strategy, but it works the way that drink worked to take away your anxiety, but it doesn't actually give you what you really want. So I was just speaking with a woman just 2 days ago. She's about mid-40s, successful in her career, has a family, has a husband, and feels incredibly lonely and doesn't even really know what to change out there anymore because I have all the things. And she's lonely because no one, not even her husband, really knows her. And that might not sound bad. Some people might hear that and say, I'll take the family and the money and the career and then I'll be fine. But actually, when you get there and you don't feel like anything out there is going to change it, and inside you feel profoundly lonely, it's a story of a lot of suffering. And it's a story that hundreds of millions of people live out and feel like they're the only one, but they're not.
So can you make that all the more real and clear for us? To feel like no one really knows you, what might be some examples of the false impression others on the outside have in contrast to the reality that is within?
Yeah. Well, the impression people have on the outside is what you learned will keep them close to you. And it might be different. I call them the roles that you're going to play, right? So at work, you have a certain role that you play. I need to be confident sounding, in charge, certain. With my partner, I need to be pleasing. So what do they want me to be? I'll agree to things that I think that they'll want me to agree with. I'll focus on the things that they want. We'll talk about what they want. I also know that they don't like it if I'm irritable or if I'm sad. So I'm going to downplay that or hide that. And that's true for friends as well. I got to be up. I got to be on. I don't want to be boring. I don't want to be a sad sack. I don't want to bring people down. I don't want to burden people with my feelings and my woes and my problems. So therefore at work, you're going to be that way. And inside you might feel nervous. You might feel insecure. You might question yourself, but you don't show any of that. And that people can tolerate a certain amount of inauthenticity at work. But then when it really starts to get to them is when they can't even be themselves around their friends, their loved ones, their family. You got to hide it and pressure yourself. And so you can't reveal that you're feeling sad. You can't feel like something's missing. You can't reveal any of these things. And that's where the loneliness comes from for people. And it might not be these big dramatic things like what I can't reveal that I've secretly wanted to leave. And even just that I'm feeling sad today. And it's so simple, but it's a world of difference when you have to keep it all inside and all hidden. And sometimes people, really good pleasers, and I know this because I lived this for many years, you'll even hide it from yourself. I'm not sad. Everything's okay. I don't know. I just have a stomach ache. I just am tired. And it becomes this vague thing that you don't even know where you are in all of it, because then, it's scary to know what that is and maybe share it with others.
And so this loneliness, what are the knock-on, follow-on consequences of that?
There's a variety of different studies around loneliness, but loneliness is pretty much associated with all negative health outcomes and much shorter lifespan. So, that's like the big,
dying.
The big hammer, right?
Yep.
And the quality of life. But sometimes people hear that and they're like, yeah, that's about everything in life. Too much peanut butter kills you. You got to live, right? But actually, so let's not only a shorter life, but let's just talk about the quality of life. And there's the longest study in the history of human psychology is of, I don't know how many decades. It's been going so many decades that they're now in the second generation of people.
Oh, Waldinger?
Is this the one that's done with the Harvard students? Yeah. The short version is it's relationships. That's what makes us feel good in life. That's what makes us feel happy in life. That's what protects us from hard times in life and not just you got somebody in your house that's your roommate. No, we're talking about confidants, real relationships, people where you're in life together. And so the loneliness, the cost of that is you don't have that, or you have a very limited amount of that. And that is the biggest determiner of true success, which for everybody, I don't care what they value in life, true success for everybody is actually to feel rich inside, right? Like feel full of success, of love, of meaning, of resources. And so you can have external success and feel empty inside and not have the thing that we all really want, which is those real connections with people.
Okay.
But other than that, it's great. And we should just keep doing it.
All right. Well, could you give us a ray of hope then? An inspiring tale of people pleaser reformed.
Yeah. The ray of hope is people pleasing is not who you are. It's a pattern that you run. And that's fantastic news, because any pattern that you run, you can change. It's an active process. It's a verb, like walking or eating. And so you can put down the fork and no longer be eating. You can put down the people pleasing pattern and no longer be pleasing. And you can still be very loved by more people than you could ever need to be loved by. And you could be more boldly yourself and actually enjoy who you are and stop trying to be somebody that you're supposed to be for others. And I think this is the biggest risk. This is the leap of faith. And that's why I think people will read my books or work with me, because there's some part of them that say, that sounds a little too good to be true. You're saying I can be me and have love and belonging? And the answer, the good news, the ray of hope, is absolutely yes. And it's on the other side of that risk, the other side of what we fear, which is if I'm really me, everything's going to fall apart and no one's going to love me. But that's the whole source of the problem to begin with.
Okay. So warm, loving relationships, longer life, higher quality of life. That sounds swell. And then your organization is called the Center for Social Confidence. Tell us about what that confidence picture looks like on the other side of people pleasing.
Yes. Well, there is the outer layer, which I think we all maybe focus on at first, which is, well, I want to be more confident. What does that mean? Well, it means I can be more bold. I can walk up to people and talk to them. I can initiate conversations. I can network with people. I can just walk into a room and not feel afraid of what people are going to think. I can really just be myself. That means more power in leadership and influence and impact. You can share your idea more directly, more boldly. You can advocate for something. You can advocate for yourself, for your ideas, for your team. And also that shows up in relationships and love, right? You can go approach someone that you really are drawn to, who you really want to spend your time and your life with, and you can let them actually see and know the real you. So those are the outer observable effects. And then the inner effect result of that confidence is that you feel like you belong in this world. And that sense of insufficiency, not enoughness, and all the scarcity of there's not going to be enough love, there's not going to be enough people, like that dissolves. And that is worth way more than all the promotions and all the dates and all the stuff. But sometimes we have to start with that outer stuff, and then we realize, like, wow, me just really feeling at peace inside, that is worth its weight in gold.
Well, that does sound absolutely delightful. Yes. So lay it on us. How do we pull this off? I imagine it's easier said than done.
Yes. So the good news and the bad news. The good news is it's all possible, ray of hope stuff we were just talking about. The bad news is you're probably going to feel like you're going to die on the way there. That's all right. But it just feels that way, right? Because let's rewind. What is people pleasing? People pleasing, it's a survival strategy that you picked up that's based upon an idea, a conclusion that's not even true, but the conclusion you came to is, I'm not okay as I am. There's something, just me as I am, being totally lovable. I don't buy it. Maybe someone told you that. Maybe you interpreted that. Maybe someone wasn't there for you. Maybe you were abused. I don't know. But there was some messaging that you picked up and you're like, wow, just me being me is not enough. And so now I have to do something. And what I need to do is I need to observe you. And if I can keep you happy, then you'll probably stick with me. And I got to observe if you're upset and make sure that I don't do the things that upset you. I got to see what makes you smile and make sure I do more of those. And now a pleaser is born. And so it's rooted in fear, in the fear of abandonment, fear of non-surviving, because I'll be left, I'll be lost. So now I'm going to live that out for not just my childhood, but for, as a personality, as a whole life strategy. And so why it feels like you might die is because it triggers this kind of fight, flight, survival response inside to challenge it, which is why most people don't. But if you get up to that like fed up point enough, where you're like, well, I don't want to keep living this way. All right, let's take the leap. You don't stay in dying forever. You don't actually die, but it feels very ungrounding because there's a sense of certainty and familiarity in that way of being. And you are going to challenge that. And that's why most people don't just say, oh, I'll do it, and then actually execute on it.
All right. Well, so then what's the execution look like in practice? What are the step-by-steps? Do I just go give people a piece of my mind, Dr. Aziz? Let me tell you what I really think.
So I have 2 books on the subject. One's called Not Nice, and one's called, the newer one that just came out is called Less Nice, More You. And I talk about the pendulum, where people who have been overly passive and pleasing at some point can swing, now I'm going to let the world have it. And that's okay. Maybe that's a phase to go through, but ultimately There is a set point that's much more effective. And I think the key steps are, from a high level, are this. Number one, you have to decide that you no longer want to be so people-pleasing and nice. And that might seem like a strange step. It's like, isn't that what we're talking about? Well, no, because many people, a lot of their identity is wrapped up in, but being nice means I'm a good person. And I don't want to be a bad person. No one wants to be a bad person. And so the first thing we need to do is we need to upgrade our understanding of being people-pleasing is not the same thing as being kind or generous or loving or whatever it is that you actually value as a human. And that people-pleasing is more of a compulsion and not a choice. And so you have to be giving. You cannot say no. And that can be very detrimental. So, someone's struggling, you take an extra hour to support them. Seems kind, right? The nice person and the people pleaser doesn't have that choice. So they could be being eaten up inside. They're all stressed.
Eaten up inside, like bitter. They're like, this
Yeah.
jerk is always hogging my life.
I got too much on my to-do list. So now you're talking about resentment. So the compulsion part of it, the nice person feels like they have to. And anytime we feel like we have to do something and we don't want to in that moment, that's a formula, a human formula for resentment.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're going to start that. Now, the kind choice is like, okay, this person wants this. Do I want to give it? Does it feel right to give it? And it doesn't mean it's comfortable. Your kid's sick or something's happening and you're just like, you know what? But it feels right. It feels like I want to do it. Then you do it and you say, I want to give it. Then we won't feel resentment. True kindness leaves a glow inside. You're like, I feel good about that. Whereas when we're like, I couldn't say no. I mean, look at them. They need me. And the nice person likes to create this elaborate world in which everybody is super dependent. Like they would die without me. They would be, oh my gosh, if I left this partner, this boyfriend, girlfriend, they'd be devastated for years. They don't even see how it's a little bit of it's a way that we're trying to get some sense of significance, perhaps. The truth is that people have many ways to meet their needs, and you're just one of them, and you're not the only one. But so, yes, that's exactly what you're talking about. That's the stew of resentment that can form. And so back to this first step of I need to decide I'm not going to be so nice and pleasing is actually an important first step, because otherwise we remain in this pattern where this is the only way to be. There's the right way to be. There's a good person. Everything else is bad. And then we will perpetuate that indefinitely.
And that decision, boy, it just seems like the distinctions and the commitments are so myriad in terms of the boundaries that we're down with. In terms of, I am committed to doing this and being generous or loving in these domains. And I'm not so much down to do these other things. It really kind of feels like we got to go behavior by behavior or relationship by relationship when we determine what that decision really means in practice.
Yeah, that's a great point. And there's a shortcut to doing that, which is it can be distilled into one question, which is an extremely liberating question, but it also, if you've been living a people-pleasing life, can make you very uncomfortable. And the question is, what do I want? In this situation, what do I want? And even just asking that can push a lot of the buttons for someone who thinks that that's selfish. Your life shouldn't be about what you want. That's the problem with the world. It's too many selfish people. But actually, we're just talking about asking the question. You might still choose to say, well, what do I want? I want to not take care of my son. Well, he's 5 and he needs someone tonight. So, you got to find a way to work with it. But so it doesn't mean you instantly just, I do whatever I want. I don't even care about anybody. It's like, no, but you start with actually that behind that question is not just the data of the answer. It's actually caring about yourself, just like you would with someone you love. What do you want, honey? Doesn't mean you get everything you want, but I want to know. Maybe we can work with it. Maybe we need to compromise here, but what do you really want? And what do I really want? And this can get real nuanced. I was just talking with a friend earlier today, and he has some friends from visiting out of town. They said, hey, we want to come have some dinner with you. And he's like, oh, yeah, that sounds good. And then like, oh, also we're flying out somewhere the next day. Can we spend the night at your place? Then we'll go to the airport. And then he said, well, let me talk to my wife and we'll make sure. So he's about to go talk to his wife. And he's like, hold on a second. Before I even talk to my wife, what do I want here? And that's such a small, we could just steamroll right over that moment and go on with our lives. And that might seem so trivial, but it is, man, you add up those trivial moments, and that's your whole day, that's your whole week, that's your whole life. And you might say, well, that's horrible. How could you not have your friends stay the night? They need a favor. What a bad friend. Now we're looking at the roles of the rule of friend. And many people have extreme rules. You must always say yes to a friend. But instead, if you tune in and see, he says, you know what? That feels kind of, I don't know, confining. And he get curious about himself. Why? Oh, geez, I was hoping to have the evening. That's the one evening a week that I can spend with my wife one-on-one. She's so busy. I'm so busy. I just don't really want to give that up. So now all of a sudden we discover that the saying no there is actually a loving act for himself, for his wife, for his relationship. So we're prioritizing something else. We would not even discover that. Now he's trying to please his friends. So he says yes. And then he's feeling maybe his wife's going to be upset with him. So he's trying to please her. And then the whole evening, he's just anxious and secretly resentful, which is a disaster. So yes, we want to go day by day, decision by decision, slow down and start to really ask, what do I want here?
That's good. And what's interesting is by servicing that, and if you do make the choice, and maybe, well, one, I think that can generate all kinds of creative options that you didn't even think about to start with. It's like, hey, you could come over between 9:30 and 10 p.m. And we'll get you to the airport on time. And so there it is. So you sort of had your cake and eat it too. Now, sometimes you can't. But then I guess if you do choose to make a sacrifice on behalf of another, I think you can do so all the more eyes wide open. It's like, I am choosing to do something for this other person, knowing it's inconvenient for me, but because I value this relationship more than I value binging Netflix or whatever I was in the mood to do that evening. And then, as you said, there's sort of a glow. You can feel good about that choice. You made a values-driven decision and chose that which is good in your value system above that which is expedient. And you did so knowing full well the consequences that could flow from it.
Yeah, I love that nuance. Yes. And sometimes people hear this and they think that you're going to become this very stingy person, not just with money, but with your time. And that's actually not the case. It is very much, it's more intentional and you're linking it with your values. We have my younger son who's 8. We eat pretty similar breakfast every morning. And one of the ingredients is from downstairs. And he doesn't like to go downstairs because he's afraid of whatever's monsters. That's what lives, when you're 8 years old, that's what lives downstairs in the basement is monsters. So there was this time where we were trying to help him face his fear, but that one was just so it was an uphill battle. And I just thought, you know what? As a loving act, I'm really okay just going downstairs to get the thing. I'll help him fight his fears in other places, and he doesn't need to tackle every fear because his dad freaking is obsessed with confidence, right? So I just decided that, and it's this kind of sweet act of generosity. He's not going to be 8 years old forever. And when he's a big hulking teenager and could care less about going anywhere in the house, then that'll be a sweet memory. And so you can actually be really loving and generous in all these different ways. It's just not coming from this pressure that you have to or else. I think that's the biggest freedom.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, walk us through the next steps.
All right. So you've decided I don't want to be nice. And then you start to ask yourself, what do I want? Then the next step is going to be you do the things that are, quote, not nice. And that might be saying to your friends, hey, I'd love to see you. You guys can come. We'll get some dinner. It'll be awesome. And then you're going to need to stay near the airport or something. I'm going to have the evening to myself with my wife. It's our one night, and I really want to preserve that. It's like, oh my gosh. So you're saying no in that situation. Yeah. Another not nice thing might be to inconvenience someone by asking them for something. Can you help me with this? Or can you do that? There's disagreeing with somebody. Oof, that's real unpleasing of you. So maybe you have a different opinion. It's relevant to something in business, a decision where it might feel high stakes and it's important to share it. It might even just be a different idea or preference that doesn't even seem that important to share, but you just share it because you're, instead of smiling and saying, oh yeah, me too, you're like, I actually like the person that you seem to dislike. That's interesting, right? So whatever it is, that this is just a small smattering of the potential behaviors of you being more you, more authentic, more real, more bold. That's all the not nice behaviors. And every single one of those is going to produce probably some level of anxiety at first, because that's me testing out what could happen, which is going to be some sort of calamity. If there's conflict, the relationship's over. If I say no, the person's going to never do anything for me ever again. If I ask for what I want, they're going to hate me, right? So we have these dramatic predictions and we test them out. And it's a form of exposure, really, like behavioral training, where we need to do the steps, which tends to bring about the discomfort. And then there is another step about working with that, but I'll pause there to see if there's anything you wanted to ask about this step.
That's good. That's good. And what's funny though, is the asking for help. We think that's not nice or imposing a burden, yada, yada. But in reality, when I'm asked for help, I often am delighted to be trusted, relied upon, to be confided in on the matter. And I really like it. And I guess not all the time. Some things like, I really don't want to do that. But I think that's interesting that sometimes these not nice behaviors are in fact what people really value. Maybe some people don't get people who to disagree or challenge them enough. So it's interesting, what we think might be not nice could in fact be just what the doctor ordered on the other side of the table.
Yeah, and that highlights something really important, which this strategy of people pleasing is not a very well thought out, effective model of human relations. It's like this is the best predictors and most intelligent, socially intelligent model it's a cautionary model. It's, hey, any of those things might be a problem, so don't do any of them. That person might respond well to that, but they might not. So just don't. And so it's not a very sophisticated or intelligent interpersonal model. It's just safety oriented.
Oh, thank you. You got some more steps?
Yeah. So after you spoke up, you did the thing, and you're freaking out inside, then it's time to do the work, which is to upgrade something inside of yourself. That's where the real transformation is going to occur. People think the real transformation comes from the action, which is part of it, but then we have to upgrade. Otherwise, we just keep beating our head against the wall. And you can leave that situation. You say, oh, I feel so guilty. I told them no. I'm so bad. And if you just grind yourself, through that meat grinder for 2 days, and then you come out of it, you haven't probably really learned anything. And so the next time someone asks you for something and you think, I should say no, because that's being less nice. Then you remember the meat grinder and you're like, I don't want to do that. And so then you probably just go back to the old pattern. So to really change, after we say no, and all that stuff starts to come up, then we get to upgrade our map of relationships. And there's one that I really love, which is I call your Bill of Rights. So what you're allowed to do and the rules, basically. And so when you feel real guilty, you can examine it and say, wait a minute, what rule did I break? What did I do that was so bad there? Well, you said no to people. Okay, so what's the rule? You should never say no. To who? My friends? Yeah, you should never say no to your friends' requests. Okay. Wow, that's a pretty extreme rule. Is that how I'm going to live my life? Is there some downsides to that one? And then we upgrade with much more healthy and nuanced, intentionally chosen approaches to life, rules for life. So for example, you might say, and this is where the Bill of Rights is, like, I have a right to say no to requests. And that might sound like a simple statement, but that, if you really start to believe that and live that, that's a whole different life. Not just in terms of the behaviors you do, but how you feel on a daily basis. So I don't think we can totally upgrade these in a vacuum where we just sit down with a sheet of paper and we upgrade our Bill of Rights and then we venture forth into the world and everything is perfect. No, we kind of have to go through this process where we take the action, we feel bad, and then that's the motivation to say, whoa, it's time for something different. But if we do it and we change and we upgrade, it's like a step by step. It's almost like pulling out the faulty coding of the pattern and putting in a new coding, new software that runs so much better. And it's the software of more authenticity, more boldness, more actually being you in the world. And it turns out to work a lot better on your system than the nice people-pleasing software.
And it's interesting. It seems like those exposures, those reps really do build up over time when you work through those steps. And I suppose I am a people pleaser myself. And I've just sort of gotten clear that I'm disappointing people every day. Like there are people, maybe in this very minute, Dr. Aziz, someone might be unfollowing this podcast or unsubscribing from the Gold Nugget newsletter, which I don't recommend taking those actions, but nonetheless.
Someone out there, some loose cannon out there.
They are taking, by the hundreds, by the thousands. And so this happens. And so what's empowering is to just, for me, is I just sit with that. It's like, yeah, I have displeased someone, and that's okay. I have not sinned. I have not violated my values. I have not been, fill in the blank, selfish, greedy, lazy, any number of things that seems to kind of be at the core of a lot of this is we have these value judgments associated with what you're calling rules. It's like, I feel bad, therefore I must have done something bad. If I've done something bad, I've broken a rule. What was the rule? Oh, wait, that rule is kind of ridiculous. Huh?
Yeah. What I've found in one of the reasons why when I work with people, one of the main ways I work with people is in a group environment, is because we can identify that rule and think, that seems kind of intense, but it has such momentum of history that I find a lot of this is almost like we've been running a propaganda campaign inside of ourselves for 20, 30, 40 years. And when you've heard something for 40 years, it doesn't matter what's true or not. It's hard to challenge. Well, I was working with a gentleman in my program who just had a hard time, even in his relationship with his wife, just saying, this is what I would like to do on a Saturday. I don't know if I want to do that. Here's what I want to, like basic stuff. And so it almost felt like for the first couple months he was in the program, it was like, hey, it's okay for me to ask for what I want. And some part of me intellectually is like, of course. And then he looks, it's like around the room, is it really okay for us to do that? And we need to hear that. We need to get it reinforced from outside. And hopefully it's just reinforcing some new beliefs that are just more sane and healthy. And I think that's really a key thing to come back to is, hey, is the way I've been living really serving me? Is it serving others? Is it really? If I'm getting burnt out and hurting inside and experiencing all these mind-body issues and pain and illnesses, like, is this really how it's supposed to go? And I would challenge that. I say we're not meant to help others at the expense of ourselves. I think there's a much more of an abundant win-win way of going through life.
That is beautiful. And I'm wondering if you recommend, if this feels scary, starting big or starting small. Like asking my wife what I want to do on a Saturday in that example, is it that you recommend that you have, a small request might be, I guess I'm thinking small might be like, hey, like you could give like a lot of advance notice. Like it's on a Tuesday. You say, hey, honey, I think it'd be really fun on Saturday if we got lunch at Jimmy John's. Like, okay, that's an inexpensive restaurant. It's 4 days notice. It's lunch, not dinner. It doesn't seem like as big prime time of a meal. So I'm wondering, is your professional advice to start with some of those smaller, non-pleasing moves or requests, or to go for the bigger ones right off the bat?
I would say both are beneficial, and it's going to be based upon your discomfort tolerance, which, by the way, is akin to a muscle and is worth building. And you will build it by doing this. And so if one is going to just completely blow you out of the water, because our goal here is sustainable, think of it like strength training over many months, And so you don't want to go to the gym and just blow yourself out or you can't work out for 3 weeks. So maybe you do the lighter weight at first and it's a little easier, and that's great. You start to build momentum, and success builds on success. So you have a couple wins and you're like, well, that didn't go so bad. So I think that's a completely valid approach. And if you want to go faster, you feel like I have been in this cage for so long that I'm just ready to do whatever, I got to get out, then you might feel excited and exhilarated as you really test the edge quicker. But I don't think there's one approach that's better or worse.
You say discomfort tolerance is a muscle. One way we work that muscle is doing exactly this. If people pleasing is a diagnosis, that is apt for you. Are there any other pro tips you have on building the discomfort tolerance muscle? I've been into cold plunges lately. So if you can justify me that I'm not a weirdo and this is actually super beneficial to all sorts of elements of my life, I'll receive that, Dr. Aziz. But is cold plunges one of the activities that increases the discomfort tolerance muscle, or what are some of the other top prescriptions here?
As a matter of fact, the cold plunge is.
Thank you for that.
It's actually cold showers for clients that I work with. And I, about 6-8 months ago, invested in an actual cold plunge to take my cold to the next level. And there's a lot of physical health benefits to them. But honestly, the biggest draw for me is that discomfort tolerance. It's a training. It's a visceral training to go into the uncomfortable every day or however often you do it. And that the cool thing about discomfort tolerance is it actually does generalize. So if you took a cold shower that morning and then later in the day, there's an opportunity, someone at work is sharing an idea and you have something that you want to add to it. And you're like, well, actually, I think this. You're like, oh, I don't know if they would think that that's disagreeing, or I'm not sure. And that back and forth kind of hesitant energy. When you were in the cold shower about to go in the morning, you're like, oh, should I go into it? And you're like, here we go. And whatever that is, that ability to go into discomfort and then withstand the discomfort, it translates. Because the circumstance might be totally different. One seems physical, one seems social, but on a physiological level in your nervous system, discomfort is discomfort. And when you increase your capacity to do it, you can actually transfer it. And so, yes, physical feats of discomfort, whether it's a cold plunge or just doing, people will take the elevator instead of the stairs when there's 2 flights of stairs. They're just this unconscious addiction to comfort that we're living in. So finding ways, I'd say once a day on purpose, you could go do a wall sit where you sit against a wall with your back against the wall and your legs or your thighs are parallel to the earth. Hold that for 60 seconds and you'll be quivering. And look, is that going to make you ripped? No, but it's saying, and it's all about the framing of it. So right before I go into a cold plunge, I remind myself, this is going to make me stronger. And so it's framing it. Same thing with a wall sit is I'm not doing this just to build muscle or something. I'm doing this to say, hey, I can do things that are uncomfortable, and that will exactly translate over. And then of course there's dozens of opportunities in your interpersonal social life. And how do you find them? You just right? We all have a radar going on all the time that's saying, is that going to be comfortable or uncomfortable? And most of us are using that radar to say, well, if it's uncomfortable, then go the other way. And what we actually want to do is not you don't got to go crazy with this. It's all in the dose, right? You don't need to go insane on your dose of medicine here, discomfort medicine. But a daily dose, even if it's small, will radically accelerate how quickly you can make these changes in your life.
Big thanks to Dr. Aziz for sharing his wisdom with us. And big thanks to our sponsors. Check them out. Cool. All right. Well, could you now share with us a favorite quote, something you find inspiring?
Well, this one I like. This is Tony Robbins. The quality of your life is directly proportional to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably.
One sponsor to check out is Lingoda. Years ago, I tried learning Spanish, but stopped within weeks because I was all alone. It was just me and the software, which is why I recommend Lingoda, which offers live, affordable, online language learning lessons in small group classes. My teacher, Ricardo, was fantastic. He was friendly. He was patient. There were only 3 of us in the class, so we could interact and speak Spanish with live feedback from the instructor, and then a custom follow-up piece for what I needed to work on came my way. And in fact, there's never been a better time to try Lingoda because they have extended their biggest sale of the year. Sign up for the 7-day trial and attend 3 small group classes or 1 private class completely free. Their language courses are discounted up to 50% off. The last day to claim this offer is December 21st, exclusively through the link at try.lingoda.com/awesome with the promo code 50. Awesome. That's try.lingoda, lingoda.com/awesome, promo code 50. Awesome. One sponsor to check out is Jenny Kane. The holiday season is officially upon us, and Jenny Kane is a top destination for the very best of all things festive and gifting. They've got a handy gift guide that makes it oh so easy to check off everyone on your list. Jenny Kane has luxurious cashmere pieces, such as my all-time favorite hoodie that I am wearing right now as I record this, and tasteful homeware pieces, such as their legendary candles. Their coats are also super adorable and cozy and a great answer to the cold temperatures approaching. Finally, check out Jenny's Edits, which provides favorites under $250 and lists out handy gift-giving categories. For a limited time, How to Be Awesome at Your Job listeners get 15% off your first order when you use the code AWESOME15 at checkout. Now that's on top of their 10% rewards back rewards program. So to get 15% off your first order, visit JENNIKAYNE, JennyKane.com, and use the promo code AWESOME15 at checkout. One sponsor to check out is the all-new Clean My Mac, your ultimate solution for Mac control and care. Clean My Mac is notarized by Apple and meticulously crafted by MacPaw, a leading Mac OS and iOS software development company. I have personally used and loved Clean My Mac for over a decade, and the new Clean My Mac has evolved beyond cleaning to overall care for your Mac. Clean My Mac has a sleek, user-friendly dashboard that quickly, beautifully lets me free up space, remove junk and malware, accelerate computer speed, and improve battery life. Whenever I run Clean My Mac, I genuinely feel a sense of refreshment, as though I had tidied up my desk or office, even though it's just my digital space that's being decluttered and I barely have to lift a finger. So get tidy with Clean My Mac your way. Clean My Mac is available for purchase on the MacPaw website, Mac App Store, and Set App. They offer a 7-day free trial, and you can use my promo code BEAWESOME, that's BEAWESOME, for 10% off any Clean My Mac subscription plan.
Tolerate.
All right. And a favorite study or experiment or piece of research?
The favorite's got to be the Boulder back pain study of 2021. There's a book called The Way Out by Alan Gordon where they talk about it. But the Boulder back pain study was done to compare back pain treatment as usual, medications, physical therapy, and then also something called pain reprocessing therapy, which is treating the back pain with the mind and emotion, which has been fascinating for me with my own history of back pain and chronic pain, as well as nice people developing pain. There's a whole chapter in the book, Not Nice, about that. And so randomized, controlled trial, gold standard evidence that we can use these mind-body approaches to not just reduce, but completely transform back pain is revolutionary for the chronic pain world and something I'm really excited about getting out into the world in a big way.
Okay. And a favorite book?
There's one I'm reading right now that I really enjoy. It's called Free to Focus by Michael Hyatt. And I'm finding it really refreshing for how to reclaim your focus and your time.
Okay. And a favorite habit?
It's the best and the worst. It's the cold plunge.
And if folks want to learn more, get in touch, where'd you point them?
Yes. Go to draziz.com. That's draziz.com. And the goal is for there to be a wealth of resources for free. So there's a podcast on that page under the resources tab. There's also a mini course, a video mini course called 5 Steps to Unleash Your Inner Confidence, also for free. I have a YouTube channel. You can link there as well from the Dr. Aziz homepage. So lots of resources for free. And then if you want to take things further, we have some training courses. And I also work with people in a 12-month life-changing year-long program. So however far you want to go, I'd love to support you. And if you just want to start with the free stuff or get a book, that's a beautiful way to really learn that there's a pathway, there's a proven pathway out of this stuff. And I'm here to help as many of us as we can to get across that.
All right. And do you have a final challenge or call to action for folks looking to be awesome at their jobs?
Yes. Whatever's going to make you the most awesome at your job is also the thing that's probably either scary or uncomfortable. It's like really practicing that boldness and facing what we fear will not only produce just beautiful results in your career, but it also make you feel good at your work. You feel way more engaged.
Beautiful. Dr. Aziz, this has been a treat. I wish you much fun and minimal people pleasing.
What a fun and interesting and dynamic interview. Really appreciate it.
I love so much what Dr. Aziz had to say, particularly around the discomfort tolerance. And maybe it's because I've been doing more cold exposure here, doing a program called Exodus 90 currently. And so there's been a lot of that. But just the notion that anytime you're doing something discomforting, unpleasant that you don't like to do, there's an extra dose of benefit associated with it. Oh, I'm building my discomfort tolerance by doing this thing. And I can transfer that elsewhere. So that's a little extra dose of motivation to do that which is undesirable. And wow, that process of introspection to say, I feel guilty. What's going on? What rule have I broken here? Well, that rule is kind of nuts. Whoa, what's that about? Like just that sequence of repeated reflection, really can be transformative. I've seen it in my own life as a recovering people pleaser. So I recommend you take that on. And great stuff from Dr. Aziz. Please drop in by our website, awesomeatyourjob.com/EP925 to check out the show notes, the resources, and links to items that we've mentioned. And of course, the Gold Nugget email list, which provides actionable summary write-ups of the wisdom you hear from Dr. Aziz, as well as all 925 guests. Great stuff over at Awesome at Your Job. Hope to catch you next time, and peace.
Thanks for listening. To get the most out of the show, we recommend 2 key things. First, check out the extra resources at awesomeatyourjob.com. You can find this episode's transcript and links, as well as the perfect episode for your situation. You can search the full text transcripts of hundreds of episodes or explore episodes tagged by topic and competency covered. Second, subscribe to the podcast and get future episodes automatically. You can subscribe by telling Siri and several other smartphones and speakers, subscribe to the How to Be Awesome at Your Job podcast, or by tapping subscribe in your podcast player of choice. If you'd like some extra help figuring out podcasts and how subscriptions work, visit awesomeatyourjob.com/subscribe for guidance. Hope to catch you on the next episode of How to Be Awesome at Your Job.